After reincarnating, I remained unassuming and unambitious, yet the crown prince grew frantic. He hastily established household rules, forbidding divorce and the repudiation of husbands. Main text: in my father's study, the marriage proposals from the prince's mansion and magistration's residence lay side by side on the desk. Lin Jian's deferential demeanor instantly confirmed my suspicion. She too had reincarnated. In my past life, it unfolded exactly like this. She feigned reluctance while secretly snatching the marriage contract meant for the prince's household, forcing me into the Shen family. I poured a decade of my life into elevating the mediocre Shen Huiyan, from a penniless scholar who failed the imperial exams to a first-rank general. Yet on the very day I died of illness, he married his new bride. All the glory I had spent my entire life building became another's prize. Since ancient times, marriage follows a father's command. Your daughter willingly obeys your arrangements and will marry into the Shen family. Lin Zhuan's voice flowed as smoothly as water, yet her eyes held a determined gleam. I lifted my gaze, my tone level. If you covet it so, this marriage contract with the prince's mansion is yours to have. Lin Zhuan's expression faltered, then she forced a docile smile. Sister, you were betrothed to the prince's household since birth. How could I presume to usurp it? You've stolen from me for so many years, one more time won't make a difference. My lips curved into a smile brimming with scorn. My stepmother, Lady Chen, hastily intervened, insisting both families were well matched. Ignoring her hypocrisy, I turned to my father. Father, as I prepare for marriage, should the items mother left behind be included in my dowry? Lady Chen's face paled. The prince's household is of such exalted status, they wouldn't care for such a meager dowry. It would only make us appear disrespectful. Precisely because the prince's household is so distinguished that we must not compromise the Lin family's dignity, I said, meeting my father's gaze. It matters little if I suffer slight, but if the prince takes offense at a meager dowry and it affects father's career, can we truly bear the consequences? Father, who valued his career above all, darkened immediately and decided on the spot, all your mother's belongings shall be included in the dowry. I will add more myself. The Lin family must not be disgraced. Madame Chen turned pale with distress, while Lin Zhuan bit her lip and graciously agreed. She was likely still lost in her dream of becoming the future wife of a first-rank general, thinking this dowry was insignificant. Stepping out of the study, Lin Zhuan approached with a tone laced with schadenfreude. Sister, marrying into the prince's household may seem glorious, but that crown prince has someone else in his heart. I fear you'll be living a life of celibacy. I smiled faintly. Sister, just wait. I won't disappoint you. Back in my room, the maid Dongyu stamped her foot in fury. Miss, how could you give up that wonderful match with the Shen family for her? Wonderful match? I sneered. Only I know Shen Huiyan's mediocrity and selfishness. Without me, he'd remain a good-for-nothing commoner his entire life. This lifetime, I refuse to sew wedding gowns for others. Though the prince's mansion harbors the shadow of a rival, at least I can live securely as its mistress, far better than toiling to death in the Shen household. 3 days later, the dowry list reached me. Every item, jewels and land left by my mother, was accounted for. My father added 2 cartloads of brocades and silks, plus 1,000 taels of silver. Gazing at this weighty dowry, I knew this was my first step towards standing on my own. On the wedding day, the crimson veil obscured my vision, and the raucous wedding music filled my ears, yet my heart remained utterly still. The hopes I'd held when marrying into the Shen family had long been ground down by a decade of hardship. This lifetime, I sought only a peaceful existence and control over my own destiny. The wedding sedan halted before the prince's mansion. The matchmaker chanted auspicious verses, yet no one came to lift the curtain. Through the veil's sliver, I glimpsed a pair of crimson cloud-patterned boots. The hand offering the red silk ribbon bore a palpable reluctance. The ceremony proceeded, the bowing before the altar, the entry into the bridal chamber, yet Mu Juanxing never once spared me a kind glance. As night fell, he did not enter. The entire bridal chamber was left with only me and the maids Dongyu and Chunmei. Miss, the young master has gone too far. Dongyu's eyes reddened with anger. You must tell the old lady. I raised my hand to stop her. No need to rush. I won't be the one seeking justice. I lifted the red veil myself. Surrounded by the festive decorations, I found a strange tranquility. That night, I slept exceptionally soundly. Without expectation, there was no disappointment. By early morning the next day, news of the new bride left alone in her bridal chamber spread throughout the mansion. Everyone waited to see me weep and wail. Yet I rose with composure, groomed myself, and went calmly to pay my respects to the old lady. Kong, the old lady's attendant, offered words of comfort. I thanked her politely, uttering not a single complaint. Perhaps my steadiness surprised her, for the old lady summoned me personally. Her tone was gentle. Juanqing's temperament is stubborn and unruly. You've suffered much. Mother overstates it. In marriage, tolerance is paramount, I replied respectfully. That day, I wandered the mansion, familiarizing myself with the surroundings. The servants, seeing the old lady had granted me full respect, dared not show the slightest disrespect. Come evening, Juanqing finally arrived, his face dark enough to drip water. Lin Yuning, I dislike you, he stated bluntly. My heart belongs to another, Cold Moon. Marrying you is merely a filial duty. Keep your place, and I will release you in time. You shall not be mistreated. I understand all this, I nodded calmly. We can coexist peacefully and part ways amicably. Juanqing clearly hadn't expected such directness. He paused, then turned and left. Dongyu was frantic, but I smiled. This was precisely the outcome I wanted. Without entanglement, I could focus on my own affairs. In the days following our marriage, Juanqing never set foot in my courtyard again. I relished the quiet, spending my days reading, practicing calligraphy, and organizing my dowry. When the invitation to the spring outing banquet on the third day of the third month arrived, Dongyu was beside herself with excitement, declaring it my chance to finally hold my head high. In my previous life, Lin Zhiwan had made a complete fool of herself at that very banquet. This time around, I intended to see just how long her smugness would last. Juanqing was waiting outside the mansion gates. His expression remained cold, yet he offered his arm to help me into the carriage. Upon arriving at Qingyuan Mountain, Lin Zhiwan was already there, surrounded by a group of newlyweds, boasting about her role as head of the Shen household's kitchen. Spotting me, she immediately approached, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Sister, why did you come? I thought the young master wouldn't bring you, considering you became a widow on your wedding night. Whispers rippled through the crowd. I raised an eyebrow and retorted, I am the young master's legally wedded wife, brought into this household through proper betrothal and marriage rites. Why shouldn't I be here? Are you implying we have marital discord, little sister? I was only concerned for you, Lin Zhijan feigned hurt. Worried about me? I chuckled lightly. Sister, you'd do better to mind your own affairs. The Shen family's main branch isn't to be trifled with. Don't end up losing your entire dowry. This struck a nerve with Lin Zhiwan, her face darkening instantly. Just then, Matron Kong approached, announcing that the old lady wished to see me. Seated beside the old madam were the princess consort of Qing, several other ladies, and Lady Shen, Lin Zhiwan's mother-in-law. Lady Shen smiled as she pulled forward a delicate young woman. This is Inger. She seems quite docile. She'll make a suitable concubine for the young master, and she'll serve him well. All eyes turned to me, waiting to see if I would react with jealousy. I offered a faint smile. Mother has excellent taste. She seems quite suitable to me. The old lady looked pleased, and the princess consort of Qing repeatedly praised my virtue. I shifted my tone, however, as a wife, I must follow my husband's lead. Matters of taking concubines should be decided by His Highness the Crown Prince himself. I had Juanqing summoned. The moment he arrived and saw Inger, he frowned and refused. Mother, Yuning and I have just wed. The imperial examinations are imminent. I wish to avoid distractions. The old lady's expression shifted slightly, but she could say no more. Mrs. Shen, rebuffed, left in a huff. The old lady clasped my hand, growing more pleased by the moment. My dear daughter-in-law, you are so sensible. The household management of this mansion shall henceforth be entrusted to you. I respectfully thanked her, my peripheral vision catching Lin Zhiwan's face twisted with jealousy. I sneered inwardly. This role of managing the household, I was determined to secure it. Upon returning to the mansion, Juanqing's concubines, Tianer and Xinlan, came to visit. Tian'er was straightforward, while Xinlan spoke cautiously. Congratulations on taking charge of the household, madam. But the young master's heart belongs to Miss Ling Yue. You'll need to step up your game. I was carried into this household in the young master's 8-person palanquin. If I can accommodate you both, I can certainly accommodate her, I replied calmly. The affairs of the mansion are numerous. I'll need my sister's help from now on. They hadn't expected such composure from me and were momentarily speechless before hastily taking their leave. Dongyu was puzzled. Miss, why aren't you angry? What good would anger do? I lifted my teacup. Rather than squabbling over jealousy, it's better to grasp real power. My days managing the household were busy yet fulfilling. I audited the accounts, reorganized the servants, and brought order to the entire mansion. The old lady grew increasingly pleased with me. Though Mu Juanxing remained aloof, he no longer deliberately avoided me. One day, the steward rushed in with news, "Lady, the crown prince has withdrawn a large sum of silver from the accounts, claiming it was for urgent needs." Dongyu immediately exclaimed, "He must have spent it on that Ling Yu." I wasn't surprised. In my previous life, I knew Mu Juanxing doted on Ling Yu beyond measure. I had a carriage prepared to pay my respects to the old lady, and mentioned this matter. "Mother, the silver withdrawn by the crown prince must be for something important. Why not consider it a joint venture between His Highness and Miss Ling Yu? That way, it would still be an asset of the royal household, and you could rest assured." The old lady pondered for a moment before nodding in agreement. "You've thought this through thoroughly. Proceed as you suggest." This move was a masterstroke. It avoided offending Mu Juanxing while securing benefits for the royal household. Several days later, while inspecting the mansion's shops, I was intercepted on my return. A woman in white stood mid-path, radiating refined elegance, none other than Ling Yu. "So you are the crown prince's newly wedded wife?" she challenged, chin lifted. "His heart belongs only to me. Your marriage is merely a formality." "Isn't the title precisely the meaning of marriage?" I replied calmly. "If you care so little for the title, why come to see me today?" Ling Yu paled, then forced herself to continue. "I only pity you, marrying a man who doesn't love you." How pitiful. My status as the crown prince's wife is like having both the bear's paw and the fish. Isn't that better than just the fish? I countered. "You may hold his heart, yet you cannot stand by his side openly. What good is that?" Cold Moon, struck at her core, was about to erupt when Mu Juanxing arrived. He instinctively shielded her behind him, his tone tinged with apology. "Yuning, Cold Moon meant no harm." "I understand." I curtsied gracefully. "The crown prince has matters to attend to. I shall return to the manor first." Watching my retreating figure, a flicker of complexity passed through Mu Juanxing's eyes. Back at the manor, I summoned Tian'er. She was Mu Juanxing's personal maid, straightforward in nature, and had always been looked down upon by Ling Yu. "Tian'er, you've served the young master faithfully for years," I observed her. "Perhaps I should propose to the old lady that you be elevated to concubine, granting you proper status." Tian'er was both shocked and delighted, hastily expressing her gratitude. This was precisely my aim. Promoting Tian'er would compensate her while using her to counter Ling Yu. Let them fight among themselves, I'd reap the benefits. Sure enough, days later, news spread that Tian'er had been elevated to concubine. Ling Yu was furious, privately confronting Tian'er in a quarrel that became the talk of the household. Mu Juanxing, caught in the middle, was utterly exasperated, his patience with Ling Yu gradually wearing thin. With the imperial examinations approaching, the capital's candidates hosted a poetry gathering. Mu Juanxing received an invitation and brought me along. The old lady specially arranged for us to ride in the prince's carriage, ensuring I was treated with utmost respect. The gathering was held at the smoky water pavilion by White Lake. Lin Zhiwan and Shen Huiyan were also present. Dressed in splendor, she stroked her belly with a look of pure smugness. "Sister, your younger sister is already with child. You and the crown prince have been married for so long, why is there still no sign?" All eyes instantly turned to me, filled with scrutiny. I lifted my teacup and gently scraped the rim. "My sister is favored, so naturally her wishes are granted." "Sister, you shouldn't be too anxious," Lin Zhiwan said with a smug smile. I hear the crown prince has opened a dance house for his concubine. Who knows, maybe one day she'll bear him a son or daughter. Then your life will become quite difficult. That's not right, little sister, the minister's wife interjected. Whether one is with child or not means nothing. By flaunting it like this, are you looking down on us who haven't conceived? The other ladies chimed in agreement. Lin Jian hadn't expected to set herself on fire, her face flushed from pale to crimson. Watching her flustered state, I felt no stirrings within. What she had wrought, she must reap herself. Mu Juanxing composed poetry by the lake. I admired the scenery alone, and in a moment of inspiration, murmured a verse. What a beautiful poem! A crisp voice rang out as Liu Jian, the young master of the Ingua Marquis mansion, approached. Madame Mu's talent surpasses even that of the young master. I thanked him politely and chatted with him for a few moments. Mu Juanxing had walked over unnoticed, his expression sour. He grabbed my arm abruptly. It's chilly by the lake. Let's move over there. His grip was unexpectedly strong, and I lost my balance, nearly stumbling. Instinctively, he caught me in his arms. Whispered murmurs of envy rippled through the crowd. Be careful, he murmured, his voice tinged with unease. Regaining my footing, I pulled my hand free. Thank you, Your Highness. After the poetry gathering, Mu Juanxing had a physician examine my foot. Though it was nothing serious, he insisted on escorting me back to my quarters and, unusually, stayed behind. I just wanted some peace and quiet, he explained, though his gaze shifted evasively. I had Dongyu fetch a quilt, intending to sleep in the side chamber. But Mu Juanxing said, no need. You sleep in the main room. I'll take the side chamber. That night passed without incident, yet something subtle shifted between us. The next day, when Mu Juanxing paid his respects to the old lady, he deliberately mentioned my poetic talent. The old lady beamed with delight, her satisfaction with me growing ever deeper. Upon hearing that Mu Juanxing had stayed in my room, Lin Yu flew into a rage, driving him out. I knew I was getting closer to truly establishing my footing. Lin Yu's tantrums didn't sway Mu Juanxing, they only made him more irritable. But within days, news came that a fire had broken out at Lin Yu's quarters. Mu Juanxing rushed there, his heart burning with anxiety. Dongyu fumed indignantly, she must have staged it herself, trying to get into the mansion. I sighed. If she wants in, let her in. In a grand mansion like this, there are plenty of ways to deal with her. Sure enough, Mu Juanxing brought Lin Yu back to the mansion, claiming she had nowhere to go and wanting her to stay. The old lady was furious and handed the matter over to me to handle. I looked at Lin Yu standing before me. Her face was full of grievance, yet her eyes held a hint of triumph. Miss Lin Yu must have been frightened last night, I said calmly. A young woman alone in the world is indeed pitiful. The young master is kind-hearted, it's only fitting he let you stay here for now. Just as Lin Yu was about to express her gratitude, I shifted my tone. However, with your noble character, how could you degrade yourself to become a concubine? Why not stay for now, and when the young master finds the right moment, he can marry you in grand style. Mu Juanxing listened and found this reasonable, nodding repeatedly. You really do think of everything, Yu Ning. Lin Yu's expression froze instantly. She hadn't expected me to say this, allowing her to stay while simultaneously cutting off any immediate possibility of formal recognition. Biting her lip, she reluctantly muttered, "Thank you, madam." I had a courtyard prepared for Lin Yu and assigned 2 matrons to attend to her, ostensibly for care but truly for surveillance. Without status or recognition, Lin Yu faced restrictions everywhere in the mansion. Even the servants dared to treat her with disrespect. Unwilling to accept this, she came to my courtyard with her maidservants just days later to provoke me. Lin Yuning, don't get too cocky. The young master will marry me sooner or later. I've never been smug, I replied without lifting my head. This household has its rules. Since you reside here, you must abide by them. Without a proper status, you have no right to act so brazenly in the main mistress's courtyard. You. Lin Yu trembled with rage, raising her hand to strike me. I seized her wrist firmly. This is the prince's residence, not a place for you to run wild. Dare to be insolent again, and I'll deal with you according to the household regulations. Cold Moon recoiled at the icy glint in my eyes and broke free, fleeing out. Dongyu smiled. Miss, you're truly formidable. A few words and you've got her completely under your thumb. She wants status? I won't give it to her. I set down the ledger. Without status, she'll never run rampant in this mansion. When Mu Juanxing learned of this, he didn't blame me. Instead, he went to reason with Lin Yu, urging her to behave herself. Seeing Mu Juanxing didn't take her side, Lin Yu's resentment deepened, and her conflicts with Tian'er grew more frequent. The tension between Lin Yu and Tian'er escalated. One day Tian'er accused Lin Yu of stealing her jewelry, the next, Lin Yu claimed Tian'er deliberately snubbed her. Their quarrels disrupted the entire mansion. I pretended not to notice, focusing instead on managing the household affairs. One day, while auditing the accounts, I discovered discrepancies in the purchasing records, clear evidence of someone lining their own pockets. I had the matter investigated discreetly and soon uncovered that the kitchen steward, hastily, and Tian'er were colluding to embezzle a significant sum of silver. I did not confront them immediately, choosing instead to wait for the right moment. Several days later, Lin Yu and Tian'er clashed again in the garden, their argument escalating into a fierce quarrel. Lin Yu snatched a hairpin and lunged at Tian'er. Tian'er couldn't dodge in time, and a small cut appeared on her neck. Mu Juanxing and Kong Lao just happened to be passing by. Tian'er immediately threw herself at him, wailing, "Your Highness! Miss Lin Yu tried to kill me. She even called the lady shameless, accusing her of seducing you." Cold Moon, both frantic and furious, protested, "It wasn't me. She framed me." Nanny Kong glared at Cold Moon. "I saw it with my own eyes. How dare you lie?" Mu Juanxing examined the wound on Sweetie's neck, then looked at the hairpin in Cold Moon's hand. His eyes filled with disappointment. "Cold Moon, I never imagined you would become like this. I swear it wasn't me." Lin Yu wailed, but no one believed her. I appeared at the right moment, my tone tinged with regret. "Miss Lin Yu, how could you be so foolish? Concubine Tian is, after all, a long-serving servant of the household. Treating her this way puts the crown prince in a difficult position." Mu Juanxing took a deep breath. "Take Lin Yu back to her quarters. She is not to leave without my permission." Cold Moon was led away by servants. As she departed, her eyes burned with venomous hatred toward me. I knew she resented me, but so what? From start to finish, she had brought this upon herself. I had evidence of Matron Li's embezzlement delivered to Mu Juanxing. Enraged, he immediately expelled Matron Li from the estate and began to neglect Sweetie. After this incident, Mu Juanxing lost all hope in Lin Yu and grew increasingly impressed by my steady and level-headed approach to matters. He came to my courtyard, his tone tinged with apology. "Yuning, I'm afraid I've made a spectacle of myself." "These are matters of the household, there's no need to speak of spectacle," I replied, pouring him a cup of tea. "It's enough that your highness understands." Mu Juanxing looked at me, his expression complex. I was foolish before, failing to see who truly cared for me. I didn't respond. Some things are best left unsaid. After Lin Yu was confined to her quarters, the mansion grew noticeably quieter. The dance studio Mu Juanxing had opened for her was thriving, bustling with guests daily. As the manager of the prince's estate, I naturally had to visit. I entered through the back gate, bypassing the bustle of the front hall. In the rear courtyard, a dancer was being pestered by a young noble. He grabbed her hand, insisting she accompany him with drinks. "Sir, please behave yourself. I'm here to dance, not to serve drinks," the dancer struggled fiercely. "Don't play the virtuous card." The young master persisted, reaching out to lift her chin. "Young master, this is the dance hall's rear courtyard. The girls need to rest after their performances." I stepped forward, my tone calm. "Dongyu, show the young master the way. The front area is where one drinks and watches the dances." The young master recognized me as Mu Juanxing's wife. His expression changed, and he sheepishly followed Dongyu away. The dancer hurriedly thanked me. "Thank you, lady consort." "It's nothing. I helped her up. You came here to dance, and I will naturally protect you." During our casual chat, I learned they had all come from the dance hall with Lin Yu. Lin Yu had saved Mu Juanxing years ago, which was why he never forgot her. But after Lin Yu became the crown prince's woman, she grew haughty and bossy toward them, leaving them deeply disappointed. I understood then. Mu Juanqing's special regard for Lin Yu stemmed from gratitude. Yet that debt of gratitude had long been eroded by Lin Yu's greed and jealousy. I spoke with several more dancers, instructing them to come directly to the prince's residence if they faced further mistreatment. As I left the dance hall, I saw Mu Juanqing and Lin Yu standing on the second floor. Lin Yu beamed with happiness, while Mu Juanqing wore an expression of utter indifference. Back at the mansion, I had the dance hall's accounts organized and discovered substantial profits. I presented the ledgers to the matriarch, who beamed with delight and praised me effusively. Yuning, with you managing the household affairs, I have complete peace of mind. It is simply my duty as your daughter-in-law, I replied respectfully. When Mu Juanqing came to see me and spotted the dance hall accounts on the table, he exclaimed in surprise, "You personally audited the books." As the mistress of this mansion, it is only natural to fulfill my responsibilities, I nodded. The girls at the dance hall have had it tough. I've already instructed that no one is to cause trouble there. Mu Juanqing looked at me, his eyes brimming with admiration. You're truly remarkable, Yuning. A hint of tenderness colored his tone, stirring something within me, though I remained composed. Your Highness flatters me. I knew Mu Juanqing's feelings toward me were shifting, but I wouldn't rush to reciprocate. This lifetime, I sought to control my own destiny, not to depend on any man. The imperial examination results were announced, and Shen Huiyan had indeed failed. When the news reached them, Lin Xian threw a fit at the Shen residence, declaring Shen Huiyan useless and a disappointment to her expectations. I wasn't surprised. Without my support, Shen Huiyan was never destined for greatness. Lin Zhuan, proud and jealous of my thriving life in the prince's residence, spent her days complaining at home, deepening the rift with the Shen family. One day, Lin Zhuan unexpectedly came to my door, her belly protruding and her face haggard. Sister, Shen Huiyan is useless. He failed the exams and shows no drive to improve. Could you please persuade him? Sister, you jest, I replied coolly. As his wife, it falls to you to counsel him. As an outsider, it would be inappropriate for me to intervene. How can you refuse? Lin Zhuan cried, her voice rising. If you hadn't stolen the marriage contract from the prince's mansion back then, I never would have married him. You sought that betrothal yourself. The life you lead now is your own choice. My tone turned cold. Sister, you should return home. There's no need to make a spectacle of yourself here. Lin Xian was rendered speechless by my rebuke and stormed off in tears. Watching her disheveled retreat, I felt no stirrings within. Within days, word came that Lady Shen, disapproving of Lin Zhuan's arrogance, had revoked her household management duties and handed them to the eldest branch. Furious, Lin Zhuan retreated to a separate courtyard, while Shen Huiyan grew increasingly cold toward her. Meanwhile, at the prince's residence, I managed the household affairs with precision. The dance troupe's profits grew steadily, and the old lady placed greater trust in me, even entrusting me with the administration of some of the estate's farmlands. Mu Juanqing grew ever kinder toward me, often visiting my courtyard to discuss estate affairs and occasionally sharing poetry and literature. He no longer mentioned Lin Yu or spoke of parting amicably. After being confined for a period, Mu Juanqing lifted Lin Yu's house arrest. Yet she remained undeterred, constantly seeking opportunities to provoke me. But without a proper status and having lost Mu Juanqing's trust, she could stir up little trouble. One day, Lin Yu deliberately brought it up at the dinner table. Your Highness, I heard the young master of the Ingua Marquis mansion greatly admires the lady. They conversed quite pleasantly at the poetry gathering. Mu Juanqing's expression darkened as he looked at me. I set down my chopsticks and replied calmly, we merely exchanged a few words about poetry. Your Highness needn't read too much into it. I was merely concerned for the lady, Lin Yu replied, feigning hurt. Concerned for me? I chuckled softly. Perhaps you should be more concerned for yourself. Living here without status or recognition, if word gets out, it won't reflect well on your Highness either. Mu Juanqing's expression darkened further, his gaze toward Lin Yu tinged with impatience. Let's eat. Enough of this nonsense. Cold Moon, rebuffed, dared not speak further. I knew I had gained the upper hand completely. Days passed, and my standing within the prince's residence grew ever more secure. The servants treated me with utmost respect, the old lady consulted me on all matters, and Mu Juanxing grew increasingly reliant on me. He even took the initiative to propose holding a formal lady of the house banquet, ensuring everyone in the capital would acknowledge my position. I did not refuse. This was what I deserved. On the day of the banquet, the capital's nobles and dignitaries arrived in droves to offer congratulations, showering me with praise. Lin Jiwan was also present. Her face looked haggard. Seeing my radiant glory, her eyes burned with jealousy, yet she dared not utter another word of provocation. At the banquet, Mu Juanxing took my hand and introduced me to the crowd. "This is my wife, Lin Yuning." His tone carried pride, his eyes brimming with tenderness. I knew he truly accepted me. After the banquet, Mu Juanxing returned to my courtyard, his expression earnest. "Yuning, I was wrong before, neglecting you. For the rest of our lives, I want to treat you well." I looked at him, my heart calm. "Your Highness, all I ask for is a peaceful life, to be the master of my own destiny." "I understand," Mu Juanxing nodded. "I will support you, whatever you choose to do." Cold Moon, witnessing our harmony, felt her heart shatter completely. Within days, she packed her belongings and left the prince's residence, never to return. Tian'er, too, came to terms with reality. She stopped vying for attention and contentedly settled into life within the mansion. I continued to oversee the household affairs and manage the estates. In my free time, I read and practiced calligraphy, occasionally accompanying Mu Juanxing on outings. Our love was not fiery or dramatic, but we shared a mutual respect and understanding. Lin Jiwan ultimately divorced Shen Huiyan. The Shen family gradually declined, never regaining the splendor of their former life. She sought to return to the Lin household, but was turned away by the Chen family matriarch. Her whereabouts eventually became unknown. This lifetime, I made no more sacrifices for others, nor did I endure any more injustices. I reclaimed everything that belonged to me, took control of my own life, and thrived with great success. Standing on the palace's long corridor, gazing at the garden in full spring bloom, I knew this was only the beginning. In the days to come, I would continue to be the master of my own destiny, living a life of true brilliance.